divorce. I had my house taken away from me. My daughter was
Mm.
custody of her. I lost it. Uh, yeah, the judge was convinced that I was faking it.
No way, really?
Yeah.
You lost everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And then God used me for COVID. I had over 2,500 patients. I treated either prevention or early treatment, and not one patient died of COVID.
Wow. That's something that I wanted to talk to you about. So you, so you, I mean, this is an amazing story. Um, and that was a big jump, from where what you went through, and how you um, were healed, because I see you here in front of the camera, and you seem well to me. You seem healthy to me. Thank God. And then you just mentioned that you've been working with COVID patients. Can you clarify that? What do you mean?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when the pandemic hit, of course, God touched my heart, and I realized that doctors were supposed to be helping patients, and there had to be something that we could do to make them well, because God made me well,
Hmm.
and nothing is impossible.
Right.
So as an anesthesiologist, we give drugs, we paralyze people in the operating room, we reverse the paralysis, we make them unconscious, we stop them from throwing up, like we give them antibiotics. Like, there's a drug for almost everything, it seems.
It's a very
So,
complicated thing, right? I mean,
right, it is.
we hear anesthesiology, but that's not, your every day kind of job. I mean, that's complex, and
Yeah, it is. People move out of the way when anesthesia walks in, and we're in the UK and in all different countries. It's not, your certificate is not just anesthesiology; it's
right.
anesthesiology and reanimation,
Okay.
because it's not enough to put somebody to sleep; you have to wake them
You have
up
to wake
too,
him up, right?
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I wasn't afraid to try new drugs, because that's what we did as a profession. I paralyzed people one time without ever having done it before, right? So
Right,
I
right.
wasn't, I did my reading, I did my research, I learned about ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. I'd never prescribed it before, neither had anybody else, but I thought, well, I should be able to do it, but better than maybe the next doctor, because I'm an anesthesiologist. I'm like a pharmacist.
And,
I'm like a walking pharmacist.
but on top of that, which those drugs that you are mentioning, those, well, is drug the right word? I mean,
Mhm.
those yeah, that medicine or those treatments are known to us and are well researched and well documented, because they've been used for decades, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
Ivermectin, especially, is on the WHO list of essential drugs for every country. It was literally found in the dirt at a golf
Yeah,
course in
a golf
Japan and won
course.
the
Yeah,
Nobel Prize. Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. So it is safe. So, but
Yeah.
I was afraid to try it in the beginning, like it was brand new to me. I didn't, the government
Meaning
made
in
us
this
feel like it.
case, sorry, meaning in this case, you said in regarding COVID patients. Is that what you mean?
Mhm.
Okay.
That's right, for
Mhm.
COVID. That's
Mhm.
right. The government made us feel like it was wrong to do it, or that we
Mhm.
shouldn't do it. And I decided that we had to do something, because all that the doctors were doing out here was telling people to stay home until their lips turned blue.
Well,
And then if people
that's
went
what
into the
they did
hospital, they
everywhere.
died.
That's what they did
Yeah,
everywhere. I mean, they
yeah.
very, very early on, at the beginning of the pandemic, I myself was very, okay, because I kind of knew from reading. I read a lot, and I kind of knew how a pandemic goes. Just through information and reading, right? I was thinking, okay, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, and then
Mhm.
we are back to normal, right? Um, but then, 2 3 weeks, remember that 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Yeah.
Like, well, something is sketchy here. Something doesn't fit. Something is not okay. Yeah, and but many people were, dying, once they reach the hospital. So like, okay, I think the key word here is avoid, you know,
Don't go.
go,
Yeah.
but at the same time, what should I do? Just stay home?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the quandary. And that, you know what, I was actually embarrassed for the medical profession.
Okay.
And it was so embarrassing for me that doctors were literally telling patients to stay home until your lips turn blue. And they could not list one single thing to help them while they were at home. And that's a violation of the Hippocratic Oath
Hmm. Right.
because that's doing harm,
That's what doing
number
harm.
one. and
Okay.
and also it's stupid. Like, we're so dumb with all of our education that we can't tell people to take vitamin D. We can't tell them to lay on their stomach if they're having trouble breathing, because that's what we do even in intubated patients in the ICU. When you lay on your stomach, when you're having trouble breathing, when your oxygen goes low, it helps your oxygen go back up again, because you're
Hmm.
giving new alveoli some breathing room.
Hmm.
So I thought there was something wrong from the beginning when they didn't open up telephone lines, 800 numbers. Doctors, call this number if you have patients. We're here to email you a list of things that can be tried. Let's give people vitamins and supplements. So let's do ivermectin. Let's teach you how to do it. That's what they should have done. Instead, they did nothing, and I knew that was not from God. That was
Right.
not a
Yeah.
healing
Right.
profession.
Right. It was a very scary time. I mean, li- and what I be and then as you mentioned, as you notice, there was only one narrative, just one version of something. Like, no, that's not how science work. I mean, you have to get all the smart heads. I'm thinking German right now, but to getting everyone involved and discussing this thing, and thesis, antithesis, and let's move to the next stage. But nothing like that was happening, and that was when I said, like, no, something wrong is going on. Um,
Yeah,
but
and I'm lucky that I'm in a practice by myself. I'm a solo practitioner. I'm not in a group of doctors, and most doctors in America are in a group or with an HMO. So they have a boss that tells them what they can and cannot do, and I didn't have that.
okay,
So I was
so
lucky
so
that way.
you
I was
were not
blessed.
so you were not working at a hospital at the time?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, I just had my own clinic, and then I ended up treating everybody on the phone. I never saw one patient in person. I made
Hmm.
everybody, God help me, heal everybody and have them stay well, just on the phone.
Did you develop your own protocol? Yeah, I mean, they were back then. I came across Dr. McCallum protocol, and the what is that? Dr. Corey,
The
and
FLCCC,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
FLCCC, the IMS Plus protocol.
that's
Yeah, so
right.
I learned all of
Yeah,
those different
yeah.
protocols, and I developed my own, which was a combination of all of them.
Okay, that's good.
And
We
then I
have
would pick and choose.
we have to talk
Yeah,
about
I would
that. We
pick
have
and choose.
to. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
and I actually have, yeah, I still have today. I have a free handout that's on a Google Drive. I'll give you the link to it,
yes.
but it has everything that you take if you have COVID. And page 11 is when it's like a nurse. It tells
Okay.
you from 7 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night what to take every minute of the day,
All right.
when to drink, when to rest. You drink your ET. It has a whole list of
Awesome.
things to do,
That's
and
great.
boom, you just do as many of them as you can.
Thank you. So I'll include that in the description box. And by the way, I forgot to mention that Dr. Margaret Aranda, all of her contact information, Twitter, webpage, and so on and so forth, uh, you can find that in the description box if you want to follow her, and read her material and so on and so forth. Description box, please. Follow her on Twitter. What
Thank
other
you.
social media outlets do you have?
I'm biggest on Twitter, and
Mhm.
then a lot of my tweets have to do with my own writings.
Right,
So I have a Substack
a
at the
Substack.
Rebel Patient.
Hmm.
I'm the Rebel Patient on Twitter. I'm
That's
the
right.
Rebel Patient on Substack also,
Right,
.substack.com. So
right.
I write about everything from, the COVID protocols, post-vaccine injury, long COVID,
Hmm.
dysautonomia, all these things. And also the news, we have the federal government, FBI yesterday tweeted the White House protocol with cybersecurity that they want to privatize, take the private cyber universe and mesh it with the government. And they want to do
Right.
this, I think, all over the world. So we're getting to a digital world and a one government kind of thing. So all
Right.
of these things I think
Yeah.
are going to get worse before they get better.
I know, I know. Oh, so much material to talk about. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe later on we can talk about the treaty, the WHO
Uh,
treaty and things like that. But yeah, but let us go back to your practice, to your clinic, and the work you do. I mean, you mentioned that how many patients since the beginning of the pandemic?
2,500,
2,500.
about 2,500.
No one died.
Not one. The only
No.
two people that died were no longer under my care. They had to go to the hospital. And when they were in the hospital, I told the family to get the medical records after they died. And reportedly, both of them got remdesivir and were put on
Mm,
ventilators. So in America,
yeah.
people go on a drug called remdesivir, also known as Veklury.
Yeah.
It has a cyanide molecule, it has fluorine molecules, it causes kidney
Cyanide.
failure.
Yeah.
Uh, it was used in Ebola. Fauci was in charge of. He knows that killed 53% of the patients in Africa in one study, and that's the only FDA approved drug that pretty much kills people. So yeah,
I
there
mean,
and
what is the
hospitals
logic
get
behind that?
reimbursed.
What is the logic
Well,
behind
the
that?
hospital, the money, right?
Money.
It's
Uh-huh.
money. The hospital gets money for putting COVID as a cause of death on their death certificates. They get
Hmm.
money for putting people on remdesivir. They get up to $500,000 a person in California for hospitals who follow this hospital protocol that kills people.
And in Germany, uh, I'm not quite sure. I don't quote me on this, but in Germany, doctors or clinics, practitioners, they were um, getting, oh, it varies, but up to 36 euros for every vaccine that they injected on people.
And the
Um,
same here, same
it-
here,
it-
$25 for
it-
even just talking about it. They got $25, and some pediatricians got up to $40,000 a year.
so was something like that ever done in regard to other vaccines? I mean, I mean, I know the USA is big on vaccinating kids. I mean, did doctors get a premium if they vaccinate so many kids or anything? Or is this
Yeah, I
absolute?
don't know.
Is this something
Yeah,
very
I don't
new?
know. As far as I know, it's something very new.
I mean, that alone
And
is like a warning light. Hey, something is not okay here.
exactly. And then what did the doctors do when they gave the vaccines? Like, what did the cardiologists, what have they been seeing? A lot of myocarditis, but there is no such thing in America as an insurance code that I could write down as a post-COVID vaccine injury. There is no code for it at all. So I can't, if I was in insurance and doing, things within the system that we have, there's not one patient in America that has had a post-vaccine injury.
He, thank God, he woke up and he's following these things
Mm.
very closely, and he is saying that the insurance companies uh, are very, very worried because
Mm-hmm.
of the exponential curve in regard to excess deaths and things like that. So yeah, it's scary.
Exactly. We have excess deaths. We have more stillburns,
Hmm.
stillborn births, miscarriages, birth defects, fertility issues
Hmm.
of in vitro fertilizations that aren't taking.
Hmm.
Um, plus, we have Guillain-Barré neurological problems. Of course, we have the blood clots
Hmm.
and myocarditis. We have what else happens with the vaccines? Those are a lot of the big things, but
I mean, I
yeah.
read. I mean, I haven't read all the Pfizer documents. I mean, I read, but the beginning is scary. Even the first 3-4 pages. Like
Mm-hmm.
what? I mean, it's something that they documented it. It's something that came from
Yeah,
them. It's not something that anybody is making up. I mean, they documented that. I mean, I think what is the adverse events? There is about
hmm
9 pages of adverse events listed. I mean,
right.
that they listed. I mean, no one else. They listed like 9 pages or something like that. It's scary, scary
Their
stuff.
list is extremely long. It seems like there's 1,000 different diagnoses, literally, that can happen after a vaccine. And
Right.
they wanted to hide that information. Our people had to take them to court to get them to
Yeah.
release those documents. They wanted to hide them for, what was it, 75 years?
75 years. That's right.
Right,
It's
so
scary.
so that 2 generations from now they can start to learn about what actually was happening.
Right.
And I really love also that Steve Kirsch has been analyzing a lot of the vaccine injuries out here. But I want to mention something
Yes.
about vaccine injuries, if I could.
Yeah, of course.
God is bigger than any injury.
Hmm.
And doctors make mistakes, doctors are human, but I believe 100% that God could cure any injury, any deformity, any blindness we know, any problem. And that
Amen.
if you just, keep begging and praying and humbling yourself before God and
Mm.
speaking life into your life. I actually have a podcast on Substack. That's
Okay.
drmargaretaranda.substack.com
I'll
because I
include
broke
I'll
my
include
arm.
that in the page. Yeah.
I broke my arm, but look how God used it. I just started a podcast so I wouldn't have to type.
Oh, this
And
is
I,
great.
I teach people, what it was like to be in bed for all those years, how
Yes.
I learned to pray, how how the Bible taught me to get my healing. And I speak life into your life and help you to realize your own miracle.
Is this a weekly podcast?
I try to do it daily.
Oh,
So
daily.
it's
Okay.
yeah, I try to do it daily. And I actually started, this is one of the testimonies that, like, no matter what happens to you, you have to be grateful for the things that you do have and the gifts
Mhm.
that God gave you. And like, I broke my arm. I got mowed down by a dog at the dog
No
park
way.
who came up behind me and pushed me down. And I'm like, God, why did this happen to me? I had all kinds of plans. I write all the time. And I'm like, okay, God, all right, fine. You want me to
Surprise.
do something else? Yeah, right. So I started the podcast and I also started penciling, doing some art. And so
Oh,
on my podcast, I started the day that I got injured.
yeah.
I also started drawing. So every podcast, almost
Yes.
everyone, I show you the flower that I've been drawing. And so it's getting bigger and bigger and it's getting some depth to it. I'm
Ah.
almost done with it now. It's been a month.
Oh,
So that's just to show you specifically that God gave you gifts that you may not even realize that you have. And
yes.
we could take the negative things that happen to us and turn it into something positive that never would have happened had it not been for the bad thing.
Right. Everything has a purpose, and even the things that we are going through. Yeah, I agree with you. Amen. I'm gonna, the link is in the description box because I think a lot of people will be interested in listening to your podcast, and this is very important. I mean,